He stopped and sat down, then continued to smoke. The assassin opened her eyes slowly and stared at James, who seemed preoccupied. Is this really the Black Dragon? They say the Black Dragon doesn't hesitate when killing people and knew no mercy. Looks like the rumors were wrong. Leave. James shot a glance at her and waved her away. She was stunned. He let her go, just like that. Before coming here, she knew there was only one conclusion for her if she failed to kill him, and that was death. She had not expected that he would spare her. Why you are actually letting me go? She asked tentatively. Get lost, James shouted. The assassin dragged herself to her feet and left. She walked for a few steps, then turned around. James was sitting on a rock, thinking about something. She turned back and stared at James. All right, what do you want to know? James let out a subtle, unnoticeable smile, then lifted his head to look at her. What, you're gonna talk now? Ads by Pub Future. Depends on what you ask. There are some things I'm not allowed to say. The assassin sat down. Who wants to kill me? She shook her head. Dunno. You don't know. Then why did you try and kill me? I got the job off the dark web. There are bounties on you all over the world. They've all accumulated to 10 billion in total. James rubbed his nose. Was he only worth 10 billion? Who are you? Which power do you belong to? When did this country get assassins like you? James looked at the assassin. She was extremely powerful, yet she was not vulgar. Her strength was even on par with the 28 nation martial arts gurus. Well, the assassin hesitated. The gears in James's mind started to turn. This person was strong. He was not the Black Dragon anymore and had accumulated too many enemies. He needed someone strong by his side. I trust you are tired of living an assassin's life. Would you like to settle down? I'll give you a chance now. You can leave the underworld and change your name to start over. Thank you for letting me live. I've said everything I have to. Watch out for yourself. There will be more assassins after you from now on. With that, the assassin disappeared into the darkness. James frowned. Back in the army, he had not made contact with any assassination organizations. He did not know where she was from. He spared her to get information, but it was also to gain more allies. This was because he lacked numbers and had to get stronger. He considered giving the Blight King a call and having him investigate the assassin's origin, but thought against it after remembering that the Blight King was being watched by many men in power. He would have to call on Jake Graham if he wanted to know who the assassin was. He planned on contacting Jake Graham tomorrow once they returned home and to have him use his underground network to run a background check on the assassin. James stood up and started walking back at a leisurely pace. At that moment, he heard a gunshot. James's expression darkened and he jumped up a nearby tree, hiding amongst its dense leaves. A dark shadow fled in the distance. It was the assassin he had met earlier. She had been shot in the chest. She pressed down on the wound with her hand and stumbled as she escaped deeper into the forest. James, standing on the tree, saw everything. He watched as a man chased after her. He wore a mask, too, and held a pistol in his hand. The man slowed down as he looked around the forest. May, he shouted. You know what happens if you fail. You die. It's the rules. Show yourself, now. The man's voice rang out. James heard everything loud and clear. The penalty for a failed mission is death. He was shocked. What kind of organization was this? Why did it have such a frightening rule? James stayed in the tree, not making a move. However, he knew that the woman had failed her mission. Nothing awaited her except death. This was perfect. He could have her join him, instead. Nearby, behind a big tree, the assassin still had her hand pressed to her wound, but blood poured out regardless. She had been shot, and it had hit her artery. She did not have much time left. The masked man slowly followed her blood on the ground and arrived at the tree where the assassin was hiding behind. You know the rules, May. A failed assassination means death, but it also depends on the circumstances. You could have lived if the enemy had not seen your face. You've been exposed, so according to our rules, you must die. The assassin walked away from the tree. Her face was pale as she spoke slowly to the masked man in front of her. All these years, I've done so much for the organization, but just because he saw my face, I have to die. That's the black dragon we're talking about. The success rate for killing him is less than 1%. Rules are rules, the man said coldly, then pointed the gun at her. Swish! A silver needle shot out and embedded itself into the back of the man's head. Ads by Pub Future. He slumped slowly to the ground. Thud. The leaves flew up, then floated back down again. James approached slowly. The assassin was at her limit. She fell to the ground when she saw James. James walked over to her and looked at her bloody shirt. He knelt down and tore it open, revealing a bloody wound on her chest. Consider yourself lucky, James said. He pulled a wire out of the sleeve of his jacket and entered the end of it into the wound. The bullet was pulled out by the wire. Immediately after that, James took out some silver needles and used them to stop her bleeding and protect her heart veins. He helped the assassin sit against the tree. The assassin was deathly pale. She looked at James. People say the Black Dragon had unparalleled medical skills. Looks like I was able to witness it for myself. She was shocked at how skilled he was. He did not even need to touch the wound to take the bullet out. That technique was hard to believe if she had not seen it for herself. Why did you save me? Her pale face was full of questions as she stared at James. Because you have a conscience, James said indifferently. You have principles and didn't target my wife just because you wanted to kill me. If you had captured her and used her against me, you would have had a much higher chance of success, but you didn't. Is that so? The assassin was doubtful. In her line of work, there was a rule to never involve family. This was her rule, but it was also their world's rule. Once the rule was violated, there would be no place for her in that world. James examined her. I'm curious, he said. What organization are you from? She could not return to her organization anymore after today. They would only send people after her, anyway. At this point, there was no reason for her to keep them a secret. I'm May Argentum. I'm a member of the Dark Castle, and one of their 3 SSS-ranked assassins. The Dark Castle. Yes, the Dark Castle is the most mysterious assassin organization in the world. They also specialize in training assassins, May said. James had been in the military for 10 years. He had conquered lands and lived his days by the edge of the sword, but organizations like this was something he did not know much about. This piqued his interest. You say you were one of Dark Castle's 3 SSS-ranked assassins. I don't know what SSS means, but does this mean there are 2 others as strong as you are? May nodded. More or less. Who are they? May shook her head. I don't know. Dark Castle has a rule where we all had to wear masks. I've never seen any of their faces. Dark Castle also has a rule where you have to complete your mission if you accept it. If you fail, you'll die in most cases. However, the penalty is circumstantial. There's also another rule where you have to die if someone sees you without your mask on. So, what's next? James asked, looking at her. You can't return to Dark Castle, your supervisor is dead. Dark Castle will definitely be on the hunt for you. You might not be able to move freely now. May shook her head slightly. She had not thought about it. I need men by my side, James said simply. If you want, you could follow me. I can't guarantee your safety forever, but you'll be safe for the time being. May turned to look at him. You are taking me in. Aren't you worried I'd attack you the first chance I get so I can complete my mission? James chuckled. That depends if you're capable of doing that. May was lost in thought. Ads by Pub Future. She had no way of returning now. She had no place in the world. There was only one other option for her, besides dying, and that was to follow James. She nodded after a few moments of thinking. Okay, I'll go with you. James smiled faintly. He pulled his phone out and called someone named Ronald Moon. Ronald was one of the 1,000 men he had transferred from the southern plains and was the current leader of those 1,000 men. These men had been laying low in Kensington since being transferred here, awaiting James's order. "Boss," an excited voice came from the speaker. "What's your order?" It had been a few days since Ronald had brought his brothers in arms to Kensington, but James never contacted him. Now that he's calling, Ronald got excited. "Drive to Dragon Fountain Villa. There's someone here I need you to pick up." "Yes, sir." With his orders received, Ronald instantly made preparations. James hung up and looked at May. "Can you walk?" May stood up with some difficulty, sweat droplets appearing as she did. Her face was twisted in pain as she took a few steps. I'm all right," she said weakly. James knew that she was a specially trained assassin. Her body was durable and she had a terrifyingly high tolerance for pain. She may have been shot and lost a lot of blood, but the bullet had been taken out. If she could not even walk right now, she would not be worthy of being by his side. May looked at the body on the floor and took out a small bottle. She poured the powder inside onto the body, and it burst into flames in an instant, turning quickly into ashes. James did not comment and just turned to leave. May followed him. They ran back towards the hotel, one in front, and one following behind. Earlier, Lon made his move just as James gave chase after the assassin. He used the knockout gas on the security and turned the power off. People walked out of their rooms when the power was cut off. But as they did, they inhaled the knockout gas and slumped to the ground, unconscious. Lon started searching for James when everyone was knocked out. However, James was nowhere to be found. Only Thea and Quincy were around. That fucking brat. Where did he go? Lon searched every room, but James was not in any of them. He kicked a door in anger. "Boss, his wife is still here. I'm sure he couldn't have gone far. We should wait. He'll be back." "Boss, look at all the hotties. How about we let everyone have some fun?" Smack. Lon slapped the underling. There were beautiful women galore, but they could not touch any of them. Things would get messy if they did. Their only targets were James, Thea, and Quincy. He would not mess with anyone else. Otherwise, not even his boss would be able to cover it up if things escalated. "Go turn the electricity back on." "Got it." The underling hurried off to turn the electricity back on. In Quincy's room, Lon looked at Quincy and Thea, both on the bed. Quincy had finished her bath and was lying on the bed in a three-piece pajama set. Thea, meanwhile, was lying sideways on the bed. Lon could not help but swallow at the sight of these two beautiful women. These two were once the school belles. Back then, he pursued them both but got rejected mercilessly. Who knew they would both fall into his hands 10 years later? He walked over to them and admired their bodies. Thea was wearing normal clothes, but Quincy's three-piece was too alluring. He took out a small bottle and walked towards Quincy, opening the bottle to place it under her nose. Ads by Pub Future. A foul stench entered her nostrils. Cough. Quincy coughed and woke abruptly. Her eyes gradually cleared and her expression changed when she saw Lon standing in the room. She yanked the covers over her body as her face paled. "You, what are you doing in my room?" "Haha." Lon laughed. "Did you ever expect this, Quincy?" Quincy glanced over at Thea, still unconscious, and nudged her. However, Thea seemed to be stuck in a deep slumber. Lon yanked her by her hair and shoved her onto the bed. "You pretended to be high and mighty, you pretended to be pure." He slapped her. Smack. Quincy's fair skin gained a red handprint. She was a woman. She was not as strong as Lon and was completely unable to resist. Lon let Quincy go and retrieved a chair, then sat by the bed. He looked at the now misty-eyed Quincy and laughed. "I never expected you to one day fall into my hands, class monitor. Back then, I wrote you so many love letters. It was one thing if you just rejected me, but you just had to read them aloud to the entire class. Quincy stared at Lon with tears in her eyes. Do you know what you are doing, Lon? She said coldly. You are breaking the law. I'm warning you, either let me go, or be prepared to spend the rest of your life in jail. Haha, you are threatening me. Lon laughed. I'm afraid of lots of things, but threats aren't one of them. He pulled out a phone and waved it at her. I'll rape you and film it. I'd like to see you publicize that. If you dare call the cops, just wait for your reputation to be destroyed. Lon had no fear. Women cared about their image the most, especially prideful, self-important ones like Quincy. You. Quincy trembled with anger. Lon took out the bottle again and put it under Thea's nose. Cough. Thea choked on the stench and coughed. Lon kicked her off the bed as soon as she woke up. Then, he walked over to her and dragged her up by her hair and slapped her a few times. Where's James, you fucking bitch? He asked while he slapped her. Thea had only just regained consciousness but was dazed before she had time to react. A few seconds later, she finally came to her senses. Lon, what are you doing? What am I doing? Lon licked his dry lips and smirked. I'm a man, you're women. We're in a room together. What do you think I'm going to do? Thea shrank away, afraid. Lon, come at me if you have a grudge, Quincy said coldly. Leave Thea alone. Come at you. Lon studied Quincy in her three-piece pajamas, her fair skin and alluring figure making her all the more tempting. He laughed heartily. Sure, I'll come at you. He walked over to her. Quincy was afraid, too. She kept moving backward and got to the edge of the bed. Then, in a moment of carelessness, she fell off the bed. Lon walked over to her and picked her up. Quincy wanted to resist, but her body was still recovering from both the snake venom and Quentin's drug. She was still weak and could not muster the strength to fight back. Lon laughed. Haha, can you not take it anymore, Quincy? Don't worry, I'll make you feel good. He tossed her onto the bed, then started taking off his clothes. After that, he glanced at Thea, who had grown pale, and smirked. Don't worry, it'll be your turn soon. James and May arrived at the hotel. James sensed something was off the moment they neared the premises. He noticed the stranger standing guard outside. He rushed back to the hotel. As soon as he entered, he spotted people on all the major stairways. He showed no mercy and took them all out, then rushed to the second floor, defeating people along the way. When he got to Quincy's room, he saw people standing guard around the door, too. Inside, Lon had taken his clothes off. Ads by Pub Future. He wiggled his body at his two little lambs and laughed. Here I come. At that moment, he heard fighting outside. What's going on out there? He turned and yelled. As he turned around, the door opened and a man walked in, his expression dark. So you are finally here, James. I've been waiting. Lon had not gotten his words out when James marched over to him and grabbed him, throwing him brutally toward the window. Lon smashed through the glass and flew outside. He fell 2 floors down onto the ground. Ah! A pained cry came from outside, then slowly got softer. Are you all right, dearest? James rushed over to the cowering Thea, then grew enraged at the handprint on her face. I'll kill him. He ran out the window and leaped down. A heart-rending shout traveled into the room. Quincy and Thea shivered at the noise. Soon enough, James returned. It's all right now, darling. I've dealt with that little beat. Honey, did you kill him? Thea was pale. James waved his hand. No, he fell from the second floor. At most, he only broke a few bones and had a concussion. Though, I did break his third leg. He'll never be able to use it again from now on. Hey, James, I'm the victim here. How about some words of comfort? James glanced at Quincy. She was still wearing her three-piece. Nothing was removed. How was she a victim? He just hugged you or something. It's no big deal, James said nonchalantly. Why, you? Quincy flushed red. James took his phone out and called the police. Lon was growing too bold, knocking out so many people with an illegal knockout gas like that. At that moment, May walked in. Who's this, honey? Thea frowned at May. Well, James was caught by surprise and could not think of an excuse. May, on the other hand, reacted in time. Hello, Thea. I'm May Argentum, a bodyguard, Mr. Caden hired to protect you in secret. I got hurt in a fight when these intruders charged in. I apologize for the shock you had to endure due to a dereliction of duty on my end. Bodyguard. Thea looked at James, confused. Ah, yes. James scratched his head and continued. I was worried something would happen to you again after that kidnapping, so I secretly hired a bodyguard for you. It was thanks to May waking me from the knockout gas that I could come save you. Oh, I see. Thea came to a realization. James looked at May Argentum, eyes filled with gratitude. She wears her heart on her sleeve, that's a good thing. Oh right, how should we deal with Lon and the people he brought? James asked while looking at Quincy and Thea. We should let the police deal with this, Quincy answered. This was beyond a small offense, it was a felony. The police should be notified. Yeah, I agree. James nodded. Quincy fished her phone out to make a call to the police. James took out the smoke antidote that he looted from Lon's body and began administering it to the alumni. Once the alumni recovered from the smoke and learned what had happened, they all broke into disgruntled groans. Lon's men were all restrained by James as he let them fall to the floor and they cried out in agony from the impact. The alumni procured some rope to tie them up. When they saw Lon, crotch drenched in blood, lying limply on the ground, all of them drew a cold breath. In the hotel lobby of the Dragon Fountain Villa, the few dozen men brought by Lon were all tied up here. Lon himself had also been brought here too. He leaned weakly against a column with fractured bones and a caved-in face. To add to things, his member had also been rendered useless. Ads by Pub Future. James, you've gone too far. Quincy watched these people, especially the heavily wounded Lon, and frowned as she spoke. Lon's condition is pretty bad. Is he going to die? If he dies, we'll get in deep trouble. James laughed harmoniously. Relax, he isn't dying anytime soon. Oh yeah, when the police arrive, you guys need to be my witness. This all was an act of self-defense, got it? Everybody gasped when they heard this. Self-defense. You don't have the tiniest injury on your body yet these people have their limbs broken. Even if you said you were only defending yourself, these guys have obviously been single-handedly and thoroughly curb-stomped. Quincy kept her eyes on James. This guy was getting more and more mysterious. Not only were his medical skills incredible, but he was also a terrifyingly good martial artist. After the events that had happened, James's reputation rose exponentially. Many people came up to talk to him, thanking him for saving the day, and saying how they could not imagine what would have happened without him. Since the place was quite far from the city, it took the police cars 2 hours to arrive. After a detailed interrogation, they detained Lon as well as Quentin Goth. When the police left, May was taken by Roan Moon to Kensington to treat her wounds. Everyone was finally able to get some rest after 3 a.m. Thea went to accompany Quincy, leaving James alone in the room. With that, the night slipped away without further unrest. The next day, Quincy organized this class reunion to reconnect with her old classmate whom she did not get to meet after being overseas for so long. The other reason was to set up a shrine for the Black Dragon, James, so people could pay their respects to him. She had this all planned out. The location was a cleared site on a hill, around 3 kilometers away from the Dragon Fountain Villa, amidst a lush forest. Some workers Quincy hired were tasked with revamping the tomb. The workers finally completed the tomb at long last, after working overtime. A short and neatly engraved sentence was on the tomb's epitaph. Here lies the Black Dragon, James Caden. James stood beside it as he watched with mixed feelings. He was a little bit upset. The people began to pay their respects. James walked away and sat on a rock. He lit a cigarette and smoked all alone. Quincy stood before the tomb and reminisced about the past. Mostly about her meeting, getting to know, and falling in love with James. Her heart was in turmoil, then her eyes began to brim with tears and eventually they rolled down her face. She waited for James for a decade, and this was her payoff. Thea also stood numbly. The Black Dragon was the one who saved her 10 years ago, the one man who changed the first half of her life. He was the person that always had her back. She never got a chance to thank him before he passed away. Joan Dunn was silent, too. Back when she was a delinquent, and bad at school, James was the one who motivated her to change her life. He passed away before she had the chance to meet him. The others in the crowd were also reticent. Their class monitor had been the Black Dragon all along. The man who went above and beyond for his country, and fought for her safety but died within her borders. After the memorial, everybody took turns to light their incense. The entire affair lasted until midday. On their way back, James held Thea and offered her sweetly, "Darling, the mountain roads are harder to walk on, be careful. Would you like me to carry you?" And no. Thea blushed. There were so many people around them, how could she say yes? Quincy felt a twinge of jealousy watching them. She was jealous of Thea for having a loyal husband that was always beside her. The crew made it back to the villa. Thea wanted to have lunch at the villa before she went back, but a phone call from home derailed her plans. Ads by Pub Future. She was told the Xenoses were attacking the Callahans. This morning, the court froze all the Callahans' financial assets and evicted them from their mansion. Their mansion was repossessed and was to be auctioned off. Thea related the news to James. James frowned. "Why is this happening? Didn't you pay all your debts to the Xenoses? Why are they coming after us now?" Thea shook her head. "I don't know. Maybe it's because I offended Key yesterday. It might have given him an excuse to act against us now." Decisively, James said, "We have to go check it out." Thea went toward the crowd. James walked to Zion Lawson with a smile. "Zion. Oh, it's you, James." Flustered, Zion stood up and asked, "Is there anything wrong?" James gave him his number and patted him on the shoulder. "I have to go back to Kensington. If you have any troubles, call me." After that, he turned and left. He and Thea rushed back to Kensington. At Thea's home, many people gathered here, including Howard's and John's families. Thea asked, "Grandpa, why is this happening? Why are the Xenoses attacking us?" Lex sighed tiredly. Thea looked at Howard. Howard did not speak a word. "What is happening? Can someone please tell me?" Thea was getting anxious. Lex finally broke the silence. "The Watsons put us in this mess. When we were trying to save ourselves, Tommy somehow got into contact with the Xenoses and borrowed 500 million. This turned out to be a trap. Now that we owe 500 million in debt to the Xenoses, they sued us and froze our accounts. The court took away all our cars and houses." The Callahans sat with tightened lips and white knuckles. Gladys quipped, "Dad, our house is small. Why are all these people here?" She came here to blow off some steam, but their current situation was the only thing holding her back from yelling at people. James did not expect the Xenoses to act this fast. He had just met with key Xenos yesterday. He wasn't targeting the Callahans then. James asked Thea, "Thea, do you have money on your card?" Thea shook her head. "No. I used all of it to pay the debts." "Mom, how about you?" James turned to Gladys. "Me neither," Gladys said. "I had a few million before, and all of that went into helping Thea with the debt." James looked around at everybody in the house, and he said, "I have some money on mine. Go find a place to settle down for now. After the medical convention, I will help the Callahans rise from the ashes. By then, the Oceanic Conference, the Watsons, the Xenoses, or the 5 provinces, they'll all amount to nothing." "James, can you get a grip on the reality of our situation for just a second?" Gladys stood up in a fit of rage and yelled, "We're all in the same boat. Where the hell would you get the money to help us? James replied, this started because of Thea, and the whole family is in trouble. Because of everyone's association with Thea. As he spoke, he fixed his eyes on Lex. Grandpa, I will transfer 1 million to you. Find a place to stay in the meanwhile. I will deal with the Watsons and the Zenoses. Thea was reminded of yesterday's incident when James brought up the $1 million. Yesterday, at the Dragon Fountain Villa, James transferred $3 million to Lorne and received it back. She wanted to ask about it last night, but too much had happened in one day, so she lost her opportunity to ask about it. James, how did you get all this money? Thea looked at James seriously. Quote. James scratched his head and smiled awkwardly. Us men will always keep some extra cash on the side just in case. This is some money I transferred out from my card last time since I had a feeling you might use up all the money from it. I wanted to have some backup for our necessities. Hearing this, Thea fell silent. It was due to her incompetence that she lost all of James' $200 million. Gladys was distraught. Her own family is struggling right now, yet here James was using his own money to help Lex. Grandpa, may I have your card number? James looked at Lex. Lex never expected the day when he would have to rely on his son-in-law to survive. Nevertheless, life goes on. He did not refuse the offer. Instead, he said, James, I will be borrowing this money. After we come out from this crisis, I will pay you back tenfold. Despite saying that, there was no confidence behind his words. Ads by Pub Future. Having the Watsons and Zenoses as their enemy, the Callahans will have their work cut out for them if they want to regain their power. Lex gave James his number and the transfer was done. Lex could not be more grateful. The other Callahans sulked. All of them blamed Thea for their situation. Tommy scoffed, James, don't think your spare change is going to make us indebted to you. We're in this mess all because of Thea. If it wasn't for her, we'd still be living in our huge mansion. Thea is a jinx. Out of everyone she could have messed with, she had to pick the Watsons and the Zenoses. We should have kicked her out of the family 10 years ago. The Callahans all chimed in to berate Thea, spewing out the nastiest verbal abuse they could. Thea admitted her fault. She could not do anything other than continually apologize. James waved his hand, trying to stop the argument. Enough, guys. It's not the end of the world. We'll overcome this together. The Kensington Medical Convention is around the corner. We should work hard on that, and claim the title of Asclepius. Asclepius. Weston, John's son glared at James condescendingly. You. His sister, Isabella added, you must be dreaming, man. Nobody believed in James. James just laughed the scornful comments off, choosing not to respond to their provocations. All right, let's go find a place to cool our heads. Lex stood up, gesturing for the crowd to leave. After everybody left, Gladys slapped James on his head, screaming, James, what do you think you are doing? Why are you giving your money to that old man? Mom. Thea tried to advocate for James. This was all because of me, it's not his fault. Shut your mouth. Gladys snapped back angrily at her. Thea went quiet right away. Gladys went off at James. In the end, she demanded James give her all of his money so she could keep an eye on it for him. James knew if he did not give her some money, he'd never hear the end of it from his mother-in-law. His mind raced. Thea knew he transferred $3 million to Lorne yesterday. Just now, he took out $1 million. Mom, I only have $2 million left. This is the money I made after being in the military for 10 years. Cut the crap and transfer that to my account. Fine. James took out his phone and logged on to his online bank account to begin the transfer. Gladys finally let him go after she saw the money in her account. Thea dragged James back to their room after that. She hung her head low, like a child who got caught doing something wrong. Honey, I'm so sorry. I got you into all this trouble. James brushed it off. It's fine, but I'm really broke this time. Thea sighed deeply as she sank into the bed. If I knew this would happen, I would never have bought Pacific Group. I've caused so much trouble and I put my entire family in debt. She rebuked herself for everything she had done until now. She raised her hand, attempting to slap herself. James held her back just in time. What are you doing? I told you it will be fine. Please, just give me some time to sort this out, okay? Tears began to fall from Thea's eyes. Thea curled into James's arms and cried her heart out. James cradled her and comforted her gently. When Thea finally stopped crying, she asked, "Darling, the Callahans are all but destroyed now. How do you plan to get us out of this and even more, rise up again?" James answered, "I don't know how, but I'll find a way soon, I promise. They'll just have to cope with this ordeal for now. It wouldn't be bad for them to learn how to swallow their pride as well." Thea had no other choice at this point but to blindly trust in James. James had always managed to pull through whenever he helped her through several difficult times. Eventually, James got up. "Right, I have to go out for a while." "Okay," Thea nodded. She did not ask why. James walked out of the room and informed Gladys and Benjamin before he left the house. He drove to the common clinic. At the same time, in the vice director's office on the top floor of the transgenerational tower. Ads by Pub Future. Quincy donned a professional suit, a peach shirt, a maroon pencil skirt, black stockings, and a pair of red heels. Her voluminous ruby-colored waves neatly rested on her shoulders. Her milky skin and seductive pink lips exuded a sense of corporate glamour. A pen was toyed between her fingers, constantly spinning. What gives about this James guy? She pondered. All along, she thought James was a useless man. Her impression of him was based on rumors she had heard about him. When they finally met, she found him rather unimpressive as well. However, she witnessed his excellent medical skills during their trip to the Dragon Fountain Villa. With only a few needles, he managed to expel the snake venom from her body and neutralize the effect of the aphrodisiac. Since that incident, she visited a few experienced doctors from Medical Street to inquire about his technique. None of the doctors thought that was possible. They said, nobody could use just a few needles to expel snake venom that had spread to their entire body, and the neutralization of the aphrodisiac was equally impossible. Impossible for everyone except James, it seemed. Moreover, he was a highly skilled fighter. She thought of how he single-handedly defeated the men Lon brought. Also, James was different from other men. She was well aware of her outstanding beauty, and her looks and allure surpassed Thea Callahan. Men would not be able to resist being attracted to her when they saw her. Once again, James seemed unfazed by her. Last night, James disappeared the moment Thea came, although she was the one helping James in the first place. Calm and collected, hiding all his unmatched skills. Incredibly knowledgeable in martial arts and medicine, yet he only has eyes for Thea. As a woman with a keen intuition, she knew for sure that Thea's husband was not the average Joe he claimed he was. All along, James, you've successfully piqued my interest. I want to see what kind of person you truly are. Quincy's lips curled into a devious smile before she quickly put all of these thoughts behind her and began working. James reached the clinic. The clinic he ordered Ron to bring me to yesterday. Boss. Ron stood up as soon as James entered, his eyes sparkling with excitement. James waved his hand to the 30-something, around 190 centimeters tall, burly man. May stood up to greet him as well. James. James studied her. She was not wearing her usual Nightcrawler uniform, but a long, form-fitting dress. She had an athletic figure, slick, black hair, and a wonderful face. She looked maidenly and innocent. Nobody would have suspected that she was a killer. James nodded. Ron, contact the boys, I have a job for you guys. James had to meet Jake Graham. Blythe King cannot provide him with the help he needs. He needed more information. Without Jake's help, he would not be able to do anything. Jake was in charge of the underground information network. This was why he was so significant to James. He had to take control of Jake, and have Jake work for him. Without Jake, he would have nothing to work with, and he would require a great deal more caution in his planning. Yes, sir. Ron made a phone call, informed the boys to get prepared, mission incoming. James, do you need me? May asked. James shook his hand and said, no. You are injured, just rest up. But May had something on her mind. James looked at her, are there any other problems? May answered, it's just that I'm technically a pariah. I don't have any identity, so it'll be hard for me to move around in the city. Could you get me a legitimate identity? No problem. James nodded as he walked out with Ron. Ron drove them to the repair factory that Jake was at. Boss, how is General Black Shadow? Ads by Pub Future. He should be fine. It has been 2 days since James last visited Henry. He assumed Henry was fine since there were no calls from the military hospital so far. After an hour or two, they arrived at their destination. Ron asked, Boss, what's the mission about? James ignored the question, are the boys here yet? They are on their way. Their estimated time of arrival is 5 minutes. Good. Let's head in. Yes. Ron nodded. James stepped out of the car with Ron following right behind him. They entered the factory. A mechanic covered in engine oil walked out with a wrench in his hand. He looked at James and Ron, and raised his eyebrow. Are you here to fix your car? James replied, we're here to see your boss. The mechanic changed his tone immediately. What boss? I have no idea what you are talking about. Our boss isn't here. James immediately kicked him. This kick was so hard that the mechanic landed on the ground with a loud crash. The commotion had drawn the attention of everyone nearby. 20-something mechanics rushed over with all sorts of tools in their hands. A bigger guy pointed at James and growled, Hey, kid. What's your business here? You should check yourself before you wreck yourself. Get him, boys. Boss, I'll take over. Ron could not wait to fight. He was a low-ranked officer of the Black Dragon Army back in the Southern Plains. He didn't have the chance to meet James very easily. Now, he's in Kensington, working for James. Of course, he had to prove himself a little. He ran into the crowd with his bare fists. The armed mechanics began their assault on Ron. James stood beside them, watching the battle unfold. Ron was swift. Soon, a few of the mechanics were on the floor, rolling with pain. After the fight, Ron walked toward James. How's that? Did I do you in the Black Dragon Army proud? James approved. Your skills are good. However, do not mention the Black Dragon Army in Kensington. Understood? Ron bowed his head, sorry about the mistake. James walked to a mechanic and placed his foot on his body. I want to meet your boss. This is just what happens if you don't give me what I want. Right then, a middle-aged man appeared. This was Jake's confidant. He was the one who disguised as Jake to meet James last time. James, what brings you here? He spoke in an uninviting tone, looking